Guys, welcome to Black Scout Survival Late Night Live. Thanks for tuning in, hanging out with me. So, Kim Jong-un has banned hot dogs. This is not a joke. This is serious. In North Korea, labeling this dish is too Western, too American, and treasonous. He says the selling or cooking of hot dogs is now punishable by imprisonment in a labor camp. Wow. Incredible. He doesn't like hot dogs. He definitely doesn't like him as much as Obama. Big Mike staring him down. Anyway, so let me start off with some other news before I get to the real serious stuff. Mark Zuckerberg has now said that he will no longer deplatform you. He'll no longer silence you. Mark Zuckerberg announces that Facebook and Instagram will get rid of fact checkers. He admits they're politically biased. Now, I watched this video today where he went discussing this, and he said that he was pretty much made to do this, and it was political. We know that the FBI, DOJ embedded within Meta and basically forced him. And if you recall, before I go into more detail of that, if you recall, they pulled Zuckerberg to the carpet, man. They pulled him up on the carpet when Trump was elected the first time. They called him in there and basically said that he allowed Russian disinformation. He was basically the reason why Donald Trump got elected. That's what they said, okay? And this is the one where, if you remember, it looked like he was an alien and kept drinking water really weird that time in front of Congress. So basically, the Democrats intimidated this man into playing guard for the Democrats. And that's why, if you recall, during the pandemic and around that time frame, 2020, there was influx. After Joe Biden took office, he sent the tyrannical three-letter agencies out to these various social media companies, YouTube, Google, every one of them, to basically, Twitter was the same, to basically shut down anybody on the conservative side. People were getting the platform en masse. There were doctors that were speaking truth during that were deplatformed, shunned, kicked off the internet. In other countries, people are being put in jail. Even today, I just saw today someone in Britain got put in jail for some memes. So literally in America, someone got put in jail for memes because of the 2016 election. Now, people have been very upset about this. I've been seeing leftists on social media just losing their freaking mind. And it also was Meta employees. Meta employees took to their internal forum criticizing Mark Zuckerberg's decision to end third-party fact-checking. He says, they said that this was going to allow misogynist, racism, all these sort of things. One worker says that Meta is sending a bigger and stronger message to people that facts no longer matter, and conflating that with the victory for free speech. This announcement comes just a day after he appointed longtime friend to Donald Trump's CEO of UFC, Dana White, to join the board. So he will be on the board of directors, and that is basically a governing body responsible for overseeing the company's direction, major decisions, and policies. The board has significant influence and power, including approving corporate strategies, making decisions about mergers and acquisitions, and setting executive compensation, ensuring compliance with legal standards. Now, if you want to know where Dana White stands on free speech, I'm going to play a clip for him. This is whenever Sean Strickland made the infamous rant when he was in Canada. Check it out.
You were talking about, like, you obviously give a long leash to your fighters about, what they can say when they are up there with a UFC microphone, and you are getting into territory of homophobia, transphobia. Like, is there...
I don't give anybody a leash.
Well, I'm saying you...
A leash?
like...
Free speech. I control what people say. Going to tell people what to believe. Going to tell people... I don't fucking tell any other human being what to say, what to think, and there's no leashes on any of them. What is your question?
I was asking that question. I'll move on, though.
Yeah, probably a good idea. That's ridiculous to say I give somebody a leash. Free speech, brother. People can say whatever they want and they can believe whatever they want. And I don't think there's any. We had two gay women who fought in the co-main event. They sat on the stage with Sean Strickland. They could give a shit what Sean Strickland thinks or what he says or what his beliefs are or what his opinions are. You know what I mean? Go ahead. What do you got?
I don't have nothing. Exactly. You know, I think Dana White's good to go. He's obviously a talented businessman at that. He was a very strong supporter of Donald Trump. And I would say that his being in charge of the UFC, that angle, you know, especially with Zuckerberg. Zuckerberg's a huge fan of UFC. Zuckerberg's a huge fan of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He practices himself. He lifts weights. You know, he wants to be that guy. But just like many people, you're seeing a lot of people coming out of the woodwork. I'm seeing it. I'm seeing guys that were too afraid to voice their opinion, and they were sitting in the shadows. They just didn't have the balls during that time frame. But now they're coming out and getting balls. So we should encourage them. But to stand up for what's right. You know, it's kind of like I was actually going to do a complete video about this, but I will mention this. There's a guy named Christian Craighead. He was the British SAS operator that went into Nairobi and saved all those people. He came out and supported Donald Trump. If you go look at his Instagram, he was just flooded with hate, right? This man's a hero. He's a cut above the rest. And in the beginning, if you look at his earlier posts, he would when he met Donald Trump or whoever, he would say this is not a political post because he was a little afraid to lose followers. But then he came out and said what needed to be said. And I see a lot of that happening. And that's why, one, this is such an important decision because X allowed free speech. Zuckerberg's always in competition with Elon Musk. He's coming out with the Tony Stark glasses now, I saw today. But Zuck coming on board with this free speech is going to force a lot of other platforms because they don't want to lose revenue. They got to stay competitive. And so Zuck admitted today that it was largely based on politics. It's precisely the Democrats' pressure on him. I mean, they put him to the rug. Go watch that whole thing. I mean, they were basically blaming him for Donald Trump being president. Now, I told you before, rebellion is contagious. That's why it's so important to be loud and outspoken, man. I mean, I have gotten a tremendous, to this day, right now, I probably got hate right now. I have gotten hate. I never cared. I'm unafraid. I lost a lot of followers. I lost a lot of business. I lost a lot of TV shows. I lost a lot of things because I started expressing my opinion, but I didn't want to be a coward. I made a decision not to be a coward. And it's important that all of us remain strong, no matter the amount of hate or criticism we get, that we remain strong during these times, because I can tell you right now that the Democrats will never see another day again. If we get free speech back where we can tell the freaking truth, they'll never get the reins back again, because all the bullshit they push, no one wants any of that, except for a couple weirdos. No one wants that. And many men are seeking guidance. And you may ask why I say that, because I see dudes looking for life coaches on Instagram all day, every day. Cats are making millions of dollars being a life coach. Men are seeking guidance. They're seeking affirmation of their belief systems. Iron sharpens iron, like the Bible instructs us. That's the way it is. Men need other men to sharpen each other. So again, if this happens and spreads to these other platforms, we will remain free for a very long time. So that's unless something happens in the next week or two. Maybe an insurrection like this.
I cannot support an insurrectionist. I just can't. And I would really love to see Democrats and independents do an insurrection on Donald Trump.
All right.
What did he say? He said he can't back Donald Trump because of insurrection, but he says we should do one.
Sorry, I cannot support an insurrectionist. I just can't. And I would really love to see Democrats and independents do an insurrection on Donald Trump.
All right.
These people are so crazy. I can't support an insurrectionist, but I want to make an insurrection. Like someone said here, less soy and more testosterone. Get that man a freaking a steak. Anyway, though, sorry. What's really alarming though is this. Okay. This is very alarming. This came out. This was broke today by James OKeefe. This is an internal memorandum, internal. So a whistleblower came forward, and it was distributed by a guy named Derek Justad, I think, the executive director of the VHA, or Office of Emergency Management, requesting medical personnel ahead of the 2025 presidential inauguration. Now, I'm going to play the video, and we're going to talk through this. It's not good, guys. It's not good. Check it out.
Usual request: support for the upcoming presidential inauguration. A high-level source inside the Department of Veterans Affairs has disclosed a memo from the Executive Director, Office of the Emergency Management within Veterans Affairs. The source inside the VA said the source deployment request did not occur for the last two inaugurations.
So they're sourcing like a disaster response for this inauguration. This has not been done before.
We spoke to the source inside the VA to ask if this is something that's typical. So
just so you know, they changed the lady's voice. They don't want to give away this whistleblower.
Can you just talk a minute about this being typical or not typical within the VA, them doing these sorts of things for the past few inaugurations?
What concerned me was that this has never been requested before.
Never been requested before. So this lady came forward with this memorandum, sent it to James OKeefe, saying this has never happened before. And this is important. I'm going to get to why this is extremely important.
Especially not from HHS. What we have, what I saw to me was a little bit unnerving. I've been in the VA for several inaugurations, and this was the first time they have ever asked for DEMS personnel.
So this individual has been through multiple inaugurations, and this is the first time this level of emergency medical and response personnel has been requested.
First time they've ever asked for personnel.
For an inauguration, yes.
Why do you think that is?
I have no idea.
I think I know why.
That's why I decided to send that memo to you, because I believe that there's something unnerving about it. I'm not 100% sure, but my gut says this is not normal, and it's not.
The memo details a formal request from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services Administration for Strategic Preparedness and Response, or ASPR.
Strategic response, preparedness and response.
It calls upon the Veterans Administration to provide critical medical support for the event. Specifically, they sought the deployment of paramedics, registered nurses with expertise in emergency and medical surgical care.
Surgical care. Like, we're talking about severe traumatic event type stuff.
And licensed medical practitioners, including MDs, DOs, NPs, PAs, specializing in emergency medicine.
So doctors, not just paramedics, doctors in emergency medicine.
The memo is signed by Derek Justad, who is the executive director for the VHA Office of Emergency Management. We ask, is this request part of a standard protocol for inaugurations, or is there a specific reason for the heightened medical readiness? We sent an email to the email address provided on the memo, and we have not yet heard back.
I wonder why that is. Well,
we also gave a call to the executive director himself, Jasad.
So this is Jasad, the guy that I said that sent out. This is the guy who sent out the memo.
This is Derek.
Hi, Derek Justad.
Yes.
Hi there. You wrote a memo dated December 10th, distributed internally, and it was said urgent, and you were talking about preparations for the inauguration. I'd like to ask you a few questions about the memo.
How can I help?
A source within
You notice the tone of like the attitude he has. How can I help?
the VA has told us that it's quite unusual. Is it typical that you guys out of the Office of Emergency Management deploy these resources for a presidential inauguration?
I can't speak to every, but
I can't speak to every. And then he goes on to say 2 out of the last 3. But we heard from the other lady who was actually the one involved in it, saying it's never happened before.
2 out of at least the last 3. I want to say 3 out of the last 4.
Well, the source inside the VA is saying that this has not been done for previous inaugurations.
I can't help what the source within the VA has chimed or has claimed, but that is not the case. And indeed, we have supported presidential inaugurations previously, and I would refer you to.
And this is the way it always works: deflection to go get an answer someone else.
Assistant Secretary for Preparedness Response at the Department of Health and Human Services to attest to that fact.
And now he's using filler. Common tactic.
Can you send me the previous memos?
Yeah,
No.
I would refer you to the FOIA office, Freedom of Information.
FOIA requests take forever to get back, by the way.
As I do not have access to materials going back that far.
But he doesn't have access to materials. He's the one that said he's the director. He could go make it happen like this.
Filed a FOIA request last week.
Okay, great.
But that's going to take months, if not a year.
You notice other high pitch. Hey, great. This man is part of this situation. He knows something
To receive. We also submitted a Freedom of Information Act request to the Department of Health and Human Services to confirm whether this level of medical support is standard procedure. We have not heard back.
Of course not.
What I'm trying to ascertain is if, and I know this is something that you don't know, is whether or not this is something that happens for each inauguration. Do you know who could help me answer that question?
Yes, VHA Communications.
So he's saying VHA Communications, when he is the director, he should be able to answer this directly. There's no reason why he should be confused about it.
So you guys have done this during the last inauguration with Joe Biden, the first inauguration of President Trump in 2017. Obama before that. You guys have done this in the past several inaugurations. You're saying?
I personally can't speak to previous.
So that's the VHA. He's saying they can't speak to him, and that's what he said. So obviously this has not happened before. The whistleblower would not have came forward. Now I want you to remember, I did a video about this. Remember this? This is back in September. Scarred by violence, lawmakers make a plan for a possible mass casualty event. Now this was odd to me. Congress must ensure it can continue to govern the aftermath of mass violence, a bipartisan group of House members argues. So it makes it where there's smoke, there's fire. This would be a plan for continuity of power in the event of a mass casualty event. Now, if you recall, also did a bit about this. Maybe it's a few videos back in my live stream. That in the video, if you look on the thumbnail, it's like got a chopper at the Capitol, and they were doing military exercises with helicopters for a mass casualty event, preparing for a mass cas. And this hasn't been done before that event. Now, they've been too quiet, in my opinion, especially with all the balls rolling. I mean, now you got Zuckerberg jumping ship. I mean, you have all these people jumping ship on the Democrats. And again, if they lose this time, they're never going to get it back. So they've been far too quiet about the drones. That junk has disappeared. That has gone out of your news feed. It's vanished. We got no answers. We had two senators say that they were Iranian drones backed by Chinese drones used by Iran off our coast. We had sheriff's deputies filming that junk. We had police departments flying their drones up. And no, it's just hobbyists. Mayorkas said they were buying them at the gas station. That's what the man literally said. I don't know what gas station. Let me know in the comments what gas station you can get an SUV-sized freaking drone from. I want to know. One of my followers sent me one that flew over his freaking house. I think it was massive. And I think it's also kind of ironic that we've been covering the Green Beret that blew the whistle on this Chinese tech, right? We just have been doing this. And today it was verified that email was true by the FBI. That email was legitimately from him about these Chinese drone tech. Had senators saying the same thing. maybe in the haste, because the Green Beret said to go there in that message on his phone. Maybe in the haste is why he chose now the timing and the message, because something's potentially could be happening. If things are done, and this is the thing, I've not talked about this, and maybe I will one day. Something happened during my career, something very unusual, and then something very big happened after that. I've talked about it with friends. Whenever there's unusual, large things that happen, large changes to protocol, it's usually a big sign. It's usually a big sign. I want to know. I want to know your thoughts, guys, in the comments. Hopefully everything goes as planned, and we're all just, I don't see it, man. I don't see it. Let me know in the comments, guys. I do appreciate you hanging out with me tonight. Make sure you stay frosty, stay strapped, and always stay dangerous. Take care.
Yeah.